Hi, this is Mrs. Cooper again with another video. This time it's on paper 2 from your mocks, so that's exploring effects and impacts. And we're looking at question 2, which is analysing language and structure. So this was the question on your mock paper, and it asked you to look at 1984 again by George Orwell, looking at lines 22 to 31. And your questions here: how does the writer use language and structure to effectively describe the world in which Winston lives? You should use relevant subject terminology to support your answer. So straight away, I'm always thinking, what are the keywords in this question? So obviously, it's language and structure. And as always, you need to refer to them equally in order to be getting really decent marks for this question. So always try and look for quotations where you can do both. It just makes your life easier. Also, I'm looking at describe, so that gives me a clue of the kind of devices that I'm going to be looking at. If I'm thinking of description, I'm thinking of imagery, and that's always a technique that you can include. Maybe the senses, the 5 senses, colour, the use of colour, adjectives, especially. There's going to be lots of adjectives, hopefully, that you could pick up on in your language analysis, and perhaps other devices as well. World also for me is a very important word. We're not looking at the description of character, we're not looking at description of anything other than world. So I'd be thinking of synonyms for world, so looking at the setting, looking at the landscape, looking at the things that make up Winston's world. And of course, this is key. You can have a beautiful answer on analysing language and structure, but if you're not using subject terminology such as adjectives, verbs, similes, metaphors, etc., and your structures, terminology, your narrative perspective, narrative tone, sentence structure, repetition, you're just not going to get good marks for this question. So let's have a look at that extract on lines 22 to 31. So here we go, straight away we start with location. We know we're outside. The world is an outside world. So outside, even through the shut window pane, the world looked cold. So that's my first adjective that I'm thinking. I'm starting to wonder, what are the connotations with that adjective cold? Well, it's a harsh environment, it's not particularly friendly, perhaps the environment reflects the type of society in which he lives, it's a hostile environment, it's not one that's warm and friendly. Down in the street, little eddies of wind were whirling dust and torn paper into spirals. Oh, so straight away we've got some lovely personification here. So eddies of wind, so that's a really particular way of describing that, almost personification you might argue. They're whirling their dust. It seems quite deliberate, this action of whirling the dust and the torn paper into spirals. There's something quite deliberate about this kind of movement of the wind, and how it's moving the dust and the torn paper. But I would argue perhaps a little bit of violence in the background there. They're whirling them into spirals. So it's beautifully sort of violent at the same time. So perhaps Orwell wants to start this really, really amazing novel that he's written with mixed emotions. It's the start of the book and he wants to pull us in. And though the sun was shining, the sky a harsh blue. Ooh, so we've got 2 adjectives there. Not just blue, but a harsh blue. So bluish adjective, and then before blue comes what we call a pre-modifying adjective. So pre, obviously beforehand, modifying means change. So that pre-modifying adjective modifies the adjective blue. We could have said the sky a calm blue, a warm blue. Harsh blue immediately brings up, again, cold connotations, a violent world, okay? So as we go on, there seemed to be no colour in anything except the posters that were plastered everywhere. And then we've got a lovely short sentence here. The black mustachioed face gazed down from every commanding corner. So a really short sentence, a simple sentence, and that I'd be picking up on to summarise Big Brother here. And we've got particularly it's mustachioed, it's very specific about the way that he looks. Perhaps you could think of connotations there. Black, again, that adjective is quite provocative there. Links with kind of darkness, gloominess, sullenness. And we've got that lovely verb, gazed, again linking with this idea of watching people intently, not just kind of glancing. Gazing is a very specific kind of look. And then we've got the corner and a commanding corner this time. So that adjective commanding leads us to believe that whoever's watching them isn't particularly nice. So we've got, then it goes on from, so we've got started with the description of the setting overall, kind of zoomed out. Then we're zooming in on the particular things that inhabit this environment. So the lack of colour and the big prominent poster. So thinking structurally, we've gone from kind of a large overview of the environment, zooming down now into this picture of Big Brother. Okay, so structurally do use those terms, kind of zoomed out and then zooming in. Okay, so as the extract moves on, we've got the big bold caption on the poster that Orwell zooms in on for us, the reader. And then it goes on to describe the poster in more detail. So there's more additional information added about Big Brother, the dark eyes that are looking into Winston's eyes. Okay, so as we're moving on, we've got again a repetition of the wind, which seems to be quite important here. In fact, you could call it a repeated motif. It's obviously symbolic here. Does the wind symbolise kind of on the fact that this novel is going to be quite unsettling? It's going to be quite unpredictable. The wind is going to take the main character here and there. You can really talk about symbolic imagery. Okay, and then as we go on, we've got the description of the helicopter. So again, sort of zooming out into the skyline of this world, and then exposition is used at the end to tell us who that helicopter is, and we begin to find out more about this world in which Winston lives. That there's police patrolling the area, snooping into people's windows, and it ends with a very dramatic cliffhanger. Even these sinister patrols did not matter. It's the thought police that mattered. So this extract does end on quite a deliberate cliffhanger. Okay, let's have a look at an example answer on this question. So it's one that both myself and Mrs. Hill have put together. So we've decided to start with identifying that the extract begins with pathetic fallacy. So straight away we've got marks for subject terminology for language. Okay, pathetic fallacy is when the weather is used to create a particular mood. And here we go on to explain what that mood is, because that's really important in question 2 and 3. Any language analysis, don't just use your subject terminology, explain the effect. Okay, here we're using the structural term of zooming in. Zooming in on the wind and the whirling dust, as explained earlier, and we're explaining the effect on there. Juxtaposition is a structural technique where it's a fancy word for contrast. Okay, so we've explained here it's used to contrast the shining sun against the environment, because actually a shining sun has positive connotations, but then the harsh blue, as picked up previously, actually transforms this into something quite unusual. So a shining sun against a harsh blue, what we would expect to be quite a pleasant scene, is now being turned on its head. Okay, as the answer goes on, we looked at the fact that actually what's left out, omitted is a word for left out, is as important as what's left in. So we've put the writer deliberately omits Big Brother's name to create fear. Okay, so often you can talk about what's been left out as heightening tension. You know, at the end of an extract, if we don't know what's going to happen, it's a cliffhanger. That resolution has been left out very deliberately, and that is an aspect of structure. Okay, we go on to explain what emotional effect that is. Then as we go on, we look at the use of word class here, so word type verbs. We've got some subject terminology again there. Personification. Pre-modifying adjective commanding, and then at the end of this we're looking at contrast. Alright, well I hope that was useful and I will see you soon.